You're now listening to a new episode of Gratitude Through Hard Times. Gratitude instills humility. Gratitude removes the ego. Gratitude helps empower the best in others around you. Our goal is to guide individuals and companies to practice gratitude so you can live a longer, happier, and more successful life. Get ahead of life with connection and purpose. This is Gratitude Through Hard Times with Chris Shembra.
Well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another episode of Gratitude Through Hard Times. It's your host, Chris Shembra, and today it's early November. The trees are falling outside of my home here in beautiful New York City, and today I'm thinking about my favorite place on earth. Rome, Italy. I just had a bowl of carbonara from today's guest's cookbook, and my belly is full recording this episode with you. For all the new listeners of this podcast, hello. It's nice to meet you. I don't know how you stumbled upon our little cozy corner of the internet, but we're glad to have you. If you look back past the episode archives, you'll see hundreds of episodes of our commitment to bring on some of the world's great leaders and thinkers and writers to share the story of how they've built the companies that they've built today through an attitude of gratitude, of empathy, of human connection. We're going to invite you to join this journey at the end of this episode by clicking that subscribe button and sharing this episode with a friend. To all the new or loyal listeners on this podcast, it's good to see you again, friend. If we were in person, I'd give you a big old warm hug, and I'd cook you a bowl of pasta sauce. But until then, some of my favorite moments are the thoughts, questions, comments, and concerns that you send in after every episode. My email's open. Hope you're doing well. It's no stretch of the imagination to say that I am deliciously, from the soul and from the nourishment of body and spirit, excited about today's episode guest. Today we have the inimitable, and I'm not good with big words, Katie Parla, one of the world's great experts on the history and culinary breadth of Rome. Today we're talking about her newest book. Her writing has either written or edited or been a part of over 20 books in her illustrious career. She's written for most of your favorite media outlets. The full bio is in the show notes below, as well as some of my favorite media articles that she's written. But today we're talking about her big new book, 350-page book titled Rome, a culinary history, cookbook, and field guide to the flavors that built a city. Folks, you know Rome is at my entire core of existence. My story started with a simple bowl of pasta sauce after an inspired evening around the dinner table in Rome, Italy. And any chance that I get to talk to someone who not only shares the same passion and love for that chaotic and unbridled city, but has devoted their life to sharing the stories, the history, the culture, inspiring you not to visit the same old places in Rome, but to go off the postcard moments and see the real, authentic moments of La Città Eterna. That is Katie Parla, and she's done it on the world's great stage for decades. We're excited that your book is coming out in just a few short days. Katie Parla, welcome to the podcast.
Grazie, Chris. Thanks for having me.
Piacere. We are glad to have you. Welcome to our little podcast, and we're excited for the conversation.
Can't wait.
Now, Katie, before we dive into your book and Rome and leadership and why it's so needed now in this world we're living in, I always like to start off with a simple question. Now, our loyal listeners know this question is the question of my life. but to all the new listeners and you, this question was invented around my dinner table on July 15th, 2015, when I invited 15 of my friends into my home to feed them a simple bowl of pasta sauce that Rome had inspired in me. And so I wanted to ask you this same question because we've been asking it every day ever since. Katie, if you could give credit or thanks to one person in your life that you don't give enough credit or thanks to, or that you've never thought to thank, who would that be?
Gotta go Joge, which is my mother. I know this is not a unique concept for Italian American people from New Jersey, but in fact, I appreciate my mother all the time, directly to her, but she deserves way more. I mean, I live in Rome today because she worked her ass off to pay for my first trip when I was 16, that life-changing voyage that set my life on its course. And she worked really hard, often multiple jobs to provide for my sister and me. And so I gotta show appreciation and let the listeners know. Joge is my number one.
What do you think she saw in you at the age of 16 that allowed her to invest in your education of that variety? And how was that a place of abundance and love and joy and opportunity for her? What do you think she had been through in her life that allowed her to do
Yeah.
that?
Well, my mother grew up in, I would say, like a middle class family in the New York and New Jersey area. And damn, my uncle, he got busted for weed in college, and then my mom wasn't allowed to go to college. The rest of the kids were banned from university. I was like, I still cannot comprehend this. And so when she saw that I was like pretty into school, she was super, super excited to just drive me to all the places, like return the overdue library books, and be a huge support from when I was like a little kid. I mean, to the present day, of course, but she was she was all about my education and especially extracurriculars. Joe was driving me to soccer, yearbook, Latin club, and it was with my Latin class, Holler, Junior Classical League,
Yee-hoo!
that that I did visit Rome for the first time, and she always made dinner every single night while she was schlepping around her kids and working her butt off, and so, yeah, she just always you know, made it feel like she made it look effortless even though it was a lot of stress. My sister and I were not always well behaved, not always appreciative, and kind of brat sometimes. And got into a little bit of trouble on that note. Uh but yeah, she never ever ever gave up.
She never, ever, ever gave up. It sounds quite similar to the history and story of Rome. As they say, Rome wasn't built in a day. It is a place that is built on the backs of hard work and war and famine and poverty and all these things, and they just never, ever, ever gave up.
Yeah, it's a persistent place to say the least.
Oh,
And not like the best place to build a city. A malarial snake infested swamp with barely defensible hills would not be my choice. And yet they persevered, and things are going pretty well right now. I don't know when your last trip to Rome was, but it's looking pretty spiffy out here.
just a couple months ago,
S
loved it.
Oh, well, you gotta let me know next time.
I'm going.
It's looking great, right?
It looks phenomenal. I
Yeah.
mean, a little bit different than 1996 when you first moved there, but we're going to get to that in just a sec. Cheers to your mom. Cheers, mama,
Holler.
for in the Latin class, for giving Katie her first, through the power of studies, giving Katie her first kind of experience as a high school sophomore in, Rome, Italy. But we're here to talk about something a little bit deeper than just what school taught you about Rome. You have let Rome touch you at a passion and soul's nourishment, existence. I feel it each and every day that I look at a photo of the sunset over Ponte Umberto of Castel Sant'Angelo and Musei Vaticani and all the great, Madagascar trees in the distance. Your goal with this book was not to talk about Rome as a place of food or history or geography, but it was to give people a mindset and a soul's connection to this place that you love. Go back to that moment for you. Tell me that passionate falling in love moment with Rome, and then let's expand into your history and culinary food obsession.
Yeah, well, I visited in 96 before the last Jubilee. Rome was a mess. Things were not clean, not particularly safe. And I think on my school trip, everyone got pickpocketed at least once. We spent a lot of time at the police station. But I was hooked immediately. Like the landing at Fiumicino Airport, which back then was busted. I was like, this is where I want to live. Like, I had barely even gotten out of the airport. And then each experience that followed for the next week, I was just like, I need to live here. And it wasn't just that I was visiting the Roman Forum, but we were staying in like the periphery in this really sketchy neighborhood. I was like, I need to know all the Romes. And there are precisely as many Romes as there are quartieri or neighborhoods. And, when we think about a city that's as vast and stratified and historic as Rome, you truly can't know it all because it does take devoting years to each of the neighborhoods, whether it's like Quarticciolo, Pignetto, where I live, Monteverde Vecchio, even the center. And so that sort of infinite, impossible knowledge was just instantly appealing to me as a sophomore in high school. And I know, uh, I knew I would never master it, but that I would spend my life trying to. And so, you're right. The book isn't just like some history and recipes. And honestly, if I was a better businesswoman, I would probably just write, 20 carbonara recipes and call it a day. But I wanted to give the full panorama of what Rome could be when you get through the romantic stereotypes, which are much less interesting than the realities of the city. And the field guide in particular really goes into like how to Rome, like how do you navigate the city? How do you become a regular in a short time? How do you penetrate what feels like a really opaque culture in short bursts, small trips, or even, longer periods of sojourn?
It's your idea of giving history and then giving a how-to and then talking about how it shapes modern culture and modern culinary choices and the different organizations that call Rome home. It's all a very important part to me. When I went over to Rome to produce a Broadway play in 2015 at Teatro Sala Umberto alongside Alessandro Longobardi and Gianni Bozzacchi and Tony Lobianco, we were producing a one-man play about Fiorello LaGuardia. Fiorello LaGuardia was the former mayor of New York City, 3-term mayor, 7-term congressman. There's a whole road named after him in Villa Borghese, the Central Park of Rome, as I would say to my listeners. And one of my favorite lines in that play of Fiorello LaGuardia on his last day in office in 1945, looking at the audience, says, "History is our greatest teacher, and we'd be fools to ignore it." And it's this idea of if you want to get things done, you have to zoom out and see the whole picture. It's this idea that we all play in a very short-term world, but we didn't have a long-term vision, a long-term understanding. Well, you're playing in the ultimate playground, I think, for long-term thinking. You're able to look 3,000 years in the past. You're able to dream up thousands of years in the future. Where do you go in that great city to meditate on that impermanence, that insignificance, this grandiose history that you're a small part of. Where do you go in this great city?
Testaccio for sure. And this is a pretty central district that's just on the other side of the Circus Maximus and Aventino, and is definitely within the Aurelian Walls. So certainly a central district, but it was developed in the 1920s mainly, though there's a 19th century retired slaughterhouse. And one of its most important topographical elements is a landfill made from 60 million terracotta jugs that were discarded during the Empire. And so you have some antiquity, but you also have contemporary Rome side by side. And then, like, I think the ultimate expression of ephemeral life in Rome, so much graffiti. People who are aware of the timeline of the city who just want to leave their mark somehow, either showing their political affiliations, their romantic aspirations, or, of course, their athletic affinities. And it's it's approachable because it feels super, super Roman, and yet there's a grid plan so you can, like, figure out where you are in the world. It's away from the huge tourist crush of the Colosseum, but no less important. And so that's where I go to sort of meditate and marinate on the topics you laid out.
Mm. Folks, to give you an idea of the map of Rome, the ancient part of Rome is where the Forum and the Coliseo and the Circus Maximus and all these great places are just about one or two neighborhoods away from this great place that Katie's talking about. However, when people leave the ancient core, they likely go to the medieval core, which is where the Fontana di Trevi, the Pantheon, the Spanish Steps, the Campo dei Fiori. So this neighborhood, Testaccio, is just right off the beaten path if you went southwest of the ancient Rome instead of northwest to get into the medieval core. Shout out to my friend Hallie Meyer, whose, I think, favorite restaurant in Rome at one point was Felice a Testaccio. So if you're planning a trip to Rome, go there. By the way, if you're planning a trip to Rome, literally go to katieparla.com and download her, I think, 120 or 160 page guide about the best places to eat, drink, and what to see in Rome. It's truly the creme de la creme, and it's updated quite frequently. So it's a wonderful, wonderful thing.
Also, all the solid tips are also in the book in the field guide.
Oh, well, yeah. Yes. The book is truly just a masterclass of history and culture, and then the great restaurants where you can get some of these great recipes that inspired parts of these books that are off the beaten path. So take me through just briefly kind of you went from writing literally like you were doing tour guides and you were writing for Fodor's and all the biggest like tour operators in the world. You've written for Vogue. You've been in Vogue. You've written for New York Times, a ton of places about where to go. And then you wrote this book, which is really two parts. First, the history, and then it's the recipe. Tell me about that two-part context and what you hope the readers will get from that structure.
Yeah, I mean, I've been writing books and giving tours and monologuing about food for a really long time. And so the book brings together essentially like the three components of what I do. The first part is I tell people history. And whether I'm doing a food tour or hanging out with friends, like, it's physically impossible to eat food the entire time. So when you're with me on a tour, you're going to hear about urbanism, you're going to hear about fascism, the Risorgimento, we're going to talk about the Iron Age, we're going to talk about ancient branding and commerce, all while we graze on things that really mirror the city's food culture. And so the first section is Rome's history through food from the Iron Age to the present. And then the second part is 110 recipes. And that includes classics. Yeah, there's carbonara in there, of course. But there are also some things that are a little less known. Payata, chicken gizzard ragu with fettuccine, all the classics. And the third part is the field guide, which is like where and what to eat or drink. There's even a section dedicated to water, which in Rome is a pretty big deal.
So that, first of all, yes, folks, when you think of Rome, you think of the as Katie calls them, the postcard moments. You think of the carbonara, cacio e pepe, matriciana, gricia, pizza, gelato. Katie takes you into trippa alla romana, carciofi alla romana, alla guida, chicken gizzard, like the things that you might call weird are the things that a different culture worships and reveres as holy. And so it's truly an empathetic journey into the minds, hearts, bodies, and souls of a group of people who might not have a voice when tourists come to Rome. And so it's truly a book of empowerment, and it's pretty awesome. You mentioned water. That was one of my notes. Folks, when you probably go to Europe, you'll notice that the water bottles have little the water bottle tops are attached to the water bottle. What you'll also probably notice, maybe as a hyper generalization, the waiters don't automatically bring you water. I don't know. There's just like a different relationship with water in Europe as a whole than like the Stanley Cup generation of soccer moms here in America. That's fair to say, right? I think so.
Accurate.
But Rome kind of bucks the trend. Rome is kind of like the most efficient water place in the world. What's going on with water in Rome, Katie?
I mean, it's been the center of the city's growth since antiquity. I mean, if you think that even great Athens at its peak didn't have even a fraction of the population of Rome at the peak of the empire, around 1.2 million. And it's because of the mastery of water engineering. And the Romans start channeling water at first underground in order to dry out their city. Like the Roman Forum used to be a swamp. And then they started canalizing it into cisterns and ultimately developed a system of aqueducts with, of course, the help of engineers imported and enslaved from throughout the world. And until there were around 1,000 liters of water per person per day coming into town, which provided for drinking water and bathing water and irrigation for agriculture and the whole nine. And we still have a lot of water in town. In fact, when you do sit down at a trattoria in Rome, they often ask, like, do you want still or sparkling water? And when you ask for sparkling, sometimes you get the naturally effervescent Egeria brand, which is in Rome. And you can go and bring your own water bottles. At the parking lot has all these shopping carts that you can like unload your empty water bottles, pull it up to the spring, fill it up, and then drive the cart back to your trunk. It's brilliant. And that's just one example of the sort of interconnected nature between quotidian life and the city's water source.
There are now how many? Well, since ancient times, there are how many? 4,000, or how many different water fountains are spread out throughout Rome?
That's a great question. So for the Nazzoni, which they look like fire hydrants with little nozzles, there are about 2,700 of those. And then there are probably another 1,000 ornamental fountains. Some are gigantic. Of course, like the Fontanone, which literally looks like the Fontanone literally means big fountain, Trevi Fountain also. And then little guys, some that have like stacks of books on them because they are on a building that was the university founded in the 1300s.
So, folks, when you take a tour with Katie, you will never have to worry about being thirsty because Rome is quite literally the most efficient city of water fountains I've ever been in. They've somehow piped, water fountains up to the top of a hill 2,000 years ago, folks, 2,300 years ago. It's ridiculous, right? So anyways, water was very important. to the spread of Rome, just like employee well-being and culture is likely very important to the spread of your company who's listening today. Another thing that I think has very modern importance is grain and bread. Now, you all that are listening to this, you probably have an employee benefits stack, group of benefits, a suite of benefits that you give access to your people to, keep them engaged and keep them happy and not angry, not revolt, those types of things. And Rome had that for many, many years through the simple grain. Tell me about the importance of ostia. Tell me the importance of grain, and tell me the importance about the first leavened bakeries in the world being in Rome that were subsidized by the government to do what? Most people think of the gladiator games as a way of doing this, but also food had its part.
Oh, for sure. And to be clear, bread and circuses is an ancient concept that was named by writers as the concept that if you keep people full and entertained, they won't rebel. It was a very efficient tool of empire. But it starts during the Republic as the city is growing. The territory that Rome is conquering is growing, and they need to feed people, because if people are starving, that's bad news bears for the leaders. And so at first, like southern Italy and then Sicily become the breadbasket. But by the 1st century BC, these sources aren't adequate. And so Augustus, well, Octavian at the time of his conquest of Egypt, later Augustus, starts exploiting Egypt for its vast grain potential. And the government subsidized grain and even distributed grain to free with a welfare program that actually gives us our modern phrase, the dole, because the vessels that grain were kept in were called dolia. That's Latin plural, guys. I'm telling you, I'm using my Latin every day. And so Ostia, which was on the sea and was the port town of Rome, is where the first grain shipments would have come in. That is until it became so silted up they had to move to a new port that they excavated and made out of poured concrete just north, called Portus. Modern day Fiumicino Airport is right there. And so Ostia became then the administrative hub. And you can visit the archaeological park of Ostia Antica and see signs of the grain trade that was based there. There's a whole sort of piazza with mosaics where in front of the shops there are logos, including big grain measures that show whoever was working in that office was somehow engaged in the grain trade. And that would have been coming mostly from North Africa.
One of the world's first known terror attacks, let's call it the 9/11 of today, was in Ostia when a gang of bandits during, I believe, Julius Caesar's time, sacked Ostia and caused havoc. Believed that
Pirates sacked and burned part of the port.
Yeah. So it burned
this
a bunch
is in 68 BC.
Yeah. So it burned a bunch of the stuff, and there was a committee to go seek out the terrorists, and it was 3 Romans.
The first triumvirate.
Yeah.
So Pompey, Crassus, and Caesar.
They were given Doge era power, like Elon Musk, Doge, bing, 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 go fucking find these guys who did this.
Go get them.
They were able to, get a lot of military might. And then the first 2 dudes died, and then Caesar. So he really, part of how he accrued so much power was because he was sent to go find the terrorists that burned up Ostia.
Yeah, and if you think about Rome in 68 BC, that was chaos, right? Because people were relying on subsidies in order to have basic pools, which is the Latin word for porridge. And it wasn't a very rich diet, but at least it guaranteed a calorie source.
Yeah.
And the rise of Julius Caesar as the dictator ultimately paves the way for the next period of Roman leadership, the empire. Of course, there's a civil war in the middle, but in any event, the power that Caesar accrues with the death, or at least the defeat of the other members of the triumvirate, is also solidified by his generosity in public arenas. So he nearly bankrupted himself putting on spectacles, gladiator fights, wild beast hunts, not in the Colosseum because it hadn't been built yet, but in the Forum and in the cattle market. And as part of the events, you'd get snacks. It's like if you went to a Devils game, I'm just going to be throwing out Jersey references to the extent that I can. And you didn't have to pay for the tickets. You just turned up and all your beer was free. Like, how great would that be? Wouldn't you love the person who funded that? Absolutely.
Well, that's, I think our listeners can, think about the ping pong table and free beer in the workplace, kind of, benefits, little chits, to keep people engaged.
Yeah, I also just want to say Julius Caesar was much more benevolent than the leaders who followed him. And while, yes, Augustus went out and defeated Mark Antony and Cleopatra, which led to the sort of conquest or the Roman, the establishment of the Roman colony in Egypt. He wasn't like a chill, cool guy. So we're not suggesting that any of the leaders listening are the terrible, nasty emperors who really we love to love them, but they're also kind of bad. They're not
horrible.
that cool. Be a Caesar, not an Augustus.
Oh, yeah. So that's a bumper sticker. Be a Caesar, not an Augustus. By the way, I'm born August 31st, so I, kind of hate that my month is after, pretty bad dude. But
he added that month to the calendar with July. Otherwise, we'd still have 10 months.
Isn't that interesting? I visited his mausoleum down in the river. I visited his mausoleum when I went to the I wanted to visit the Arapachis
coolest
museum, and I wanted to see the the altar where the song, what song was that? Song of the Ages, a poem. The world's first poet was it Heraclides? No, it was he said virtue isn't into what's in. I'll think of that guy. But anyways, Augustus has a wonderful mausoleum right on the Tiber, right near.
I gotta say, there's a great view from the Bulgari Hotel.
Yes. Oh my God. Yes. I mean,
you can see it on ground level, which is cool.
If you want,
but the roof terrace is better.
Yeah, if you want to spend probably $5,000 a night on a hotel, go to the Bulgari Hotel. Benny Tabatabai, if you're listening, thank you for building that. Anyways, so we are. It's so funny. Be a Caesar, not an Augustus. It's just there's an asterisk in this that. First of all, we have leaders kind of that are listening, but we have leaders in this world that are kind of becoming Augustuses right now instead of Caesars.
Totes.
I mean, I kind of look at from, I don't know, 2015, 2016 until like 2023. It was the height of like employee well-being and it was the height of like treat your employees because it was an employees market. They had the choice of where to go because there was abundance in the market from an employee perspective. And so leaders had to be kind. So leaders had to take care. Leaders had to listen. But somehow since like Trump came in for the second time and then AI came out at the exact same time, we've now entered into like the age of Augustus. People a lot of leaders out there are demanding very violent policy, like return to office mandates, do this, not that, us versus them. It's a very competitive atmosphere. Everybody's just racing to expand their empire in the age of AI. And so it's interesting, if we're not careful, we will have the next generation of leaders in America be very industrial, very Augustus-like, and very policy and strategy like a general driven. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think Augustus is sort of like, he's the symbol for the emperors right now, right? I mean, not all emperors were brutal and cruel. The ones who were the most successful, they're ones that seem to actually give a shit about their subjects. Shout out to Marcus Aurelius, people. If you don't have Meditations, it's available wherever books are sold. But, there's something that, as you were speaking, I was thinking about it. It links back to the Testaccio district. I am not here to say nice things about Mussolini, let's be clear. During the unification and subsequent fascist era, there was a huge labor shortage in cities, which were growing and needed to be built essentially and turned into these imperial showpieces. So the regime recruited people and brought them to urban centers from remote Calabrian mountaintops and all sorts of places where they lived communally in very kind of awful conditions, with malnutrition. And one of the features of the regime, and Mussolini did not invent this, of course, was to give the workers dignity. If you just brought a bunch of people and forced them to work for you, that's not going to fly. They're not going to work very hard, honestly. And furthermore, they will rebel. And so the public housing projects of the fascist era are designed specifically in a way to foster community, with areas that were common to everybody, with sandboxes and all sorts of improvised toys and places for kids to play. This was a time of like pronatalism as well, so lots of kids around. And there were communities within these public housing structures that gave the people the dignity that they deserved and that the regime profited from. And so when you were just sort of evoking the sort of Trump archetype, of course, the Duce comes to mind. How could you not?
But it's folks that are listening. Of course, I'm not promoting to follow a fascist ideology. Please, let's not go there. But the dignity, right? I think that's a very important word that leaders that are listening can think. What are you doing to promote and elevate the dignity of those that you serve, while also, which inspires community and engagement and service and discretionary effort, while also, doing the things you need to do to push, your mission ahead, right? It's high challenge and high support. It's not or, it's and. And Rome's always been that great and. It's a place of war and peace. It's a place of newness and history. And that kind of like and mindset, that dialectic, talk about Latin, the Latin word, dialectic is to hold two opposing truths at the same time. I can hate you and be grateful for what you taught us. I can seek radical acceptance and change. Or I can practice radical acceptance and seek change. So Rome is that great dialectic, and I think dignity of your people and challenge, to go to market with speed, to beat out the both are needed, and Rome teaches us that. I mean, it's so interesting. In February, I was in Rome last, and first of all, the city's looking great. If you're looking for a vacation for your family, they've really done a lot to prepare for this year's Jubilee, 2025 Jubilee year. It is the time to bring your family to Rome, and call Katie Parla while you're at it. But I was there with my friend Marcel, who had never been to Rome. He's from Germany, by the way. He's no stranger to, atrocity. He's from München, right? He's from where the Nazi Party began. He knows history. And I took him to a bunch of different places, including the Coliseo. And he stood in the Coliseo with me, and he got very sad. We're standing looking out at this great place. We're seeing all these people taking selfies and smiling without actually realizing hundreds of thousands of people died in that place. And, Marcel brought that to my attention. And I think maybe if you could talk about how important that is in life now to not pretend like things are picture perfect like you see on Instagram, but how important it is to actually be able to like process the hard and sit with that shame and sit with that dialogue and that tension, that conflict, because that's what makes us human. Right now, we've outsourced so many things to AI and technology, which gives us these like picture perfect answers on the first step. And it takes away the friction of being human. And Rome gives us that because it's a city built on rape and pillage and war and death and disease. People don't realize that. But that to me is the great beauty of it.
Yeah, I
That's the
mean,
hope.
literally the word malaria means bad air, and it was used to describe the conditions in Rome. And the very grand tourists who were going to the Colosseum and expressing Marcel's exact sentiment, they're like, we really like this place. I want to have a banquet here, but also tons of people died here. Isn't that brutal? I mean, it's a conversation that people used to have before FOMO and TikTok trends and all sorts of things that change our ability to engage with a place. And I think about this all the time, especially because it is my job as a guide and as a writer to help people optimize their experiences. But I try to do it in a way that also introduces the possibility of like an unplanned moment where you might accidentally have a real encounter with a human, a person who is preparing your soupli or pouring your wine. I I want people to like enjoy their selfies. I want them to make all the reels that they want and like have fun and feel like they can share on social, but also confront where they are, who they're benefiting by being there, and who they might be not benefiting by making certain economic choices. Like, the city is complex from that point of view for sure. But I hope that Marcel had a joyful moment at the Colosseum as well, contemplating the sheer engineering prowess that it took to build such a massive monument in the center of town, which was extra hard because most of the amphitheaters slash all in the other cities of Rome were built at the outskirts. Way easier to schlep a bunch of limestone to the edge of town than it is to get it into the center of the city. So props to all the unpaid laborers who executed that building.
Props to them. And Marcel shared a moment of joy right after that because I brought him to the forum and we talked about the importance of the third place. For those that are, listening and know that I talk about the importance of having a place to go in life that isn't home and isn't work. It's somewhere in between. It's a third place. That was the promise of Starbucks 20 years ago. That was the importance of the British pub. That was the importance of the city square or the park. And Rome, Rome kind of invented it. They had the Forum, a place where Cicero orated great triumphant speeches throughout history. The place where, mausoleums were built to honor the dead. A place where food was sold and cattle was traded. And it was kind of like the central place to have dialogue and to worship the gods, all these things. And you say in your book that, ancient Rome revolves around the convivium or the shared meal. What's the importance of that forum to Rome, and how does it mimic what you hope people will create more of in their life today, that third place, the place of shared gathering?
Well, I mean, for sure we can name the very important men who orated in the forum and built things there. But is also plenty of evidence that just regular people were hanging out, playing
Mhm.
board games that they carved into the steps of the Basilica of Julius Caesar. In the excavations, they even found weighted dice. And so people weren't just playing, they were
Oh,
cheating.
oh my God.
Amazing. There was fast food everywhere because most people in Rome lived in crowded slums and their buildings were too fire prone to accommodate cooking facilities. So there was a lot of like fast food people eating around essentially the precursor for steam tables at the Thermopolia, which were like the fast food joints of Rome. And there were places that were certainly socially stratified. Like you couldn't just walk into a temple that was for priests, but everyone could worship outside. And above all, the three gigantic law courts are where people went to hang out and kill time in Rome and watch lawsuits because, guys, there's a reason Judge Judy is the highest paid woman in television after Oprah. People they like to watch their fellow citizens in difficulty, in lawsuits, being sued, being divorced. And so you had this sort of like the multiplicity of different experiences in this large public place that was absolutely packed with marketing that was meant to assert the primacy of the city and the empire. Um, we have we don't have like the kind of same fast food steam tables where people stand up. We have pizza by the slice joints. Okay, if you're going to a cafeteria in Rome, and I suggest that you do, you can get very high quality food. That's where workers in the middle of the day work, in the middle of the day go to eat for lunch. But the pizza by the slice joint is where everyone goes. 5-year-old kids to 105-year-old bisnonne. Everyone is standing up, eating a fried rice croquette first, and then a slice of pizza after. And it's the ultimate democratic food. Everyone can afford it, and you can get something so simple like just a piece of flatbread that's slicked with a little bit of tomato sauce and olive oil. Some places are doing sort of gourmet versions with like fried shallots and soft scrambled eggs and truffles. And so you can find even sort of more sought after versions of this ubiquitous street food, but it's truly everywhere. And it's gathering place.
I mean, it's a place where uh, you go and you don't. It's not even necessarily that you sit. You go and you stand around talking, and there's a certain beauty and freedom of speech that you have when you're like standing and talking to someone. I mean, you go to a bar in the morning to go get some coffee and some orange juice and maybe a bomboloni or whatever you're getting, a cornetto in the morning. You don't sit. You stand right up at the bar and you talk to the bartender and you talk to your neighbors who are having a shot of espresso right next to you. And there's this fluidity of movement that you're not confined to a table 5 feet away from each other. You're literally all just like standing around eating this slice of pizza and drinking your espresso and having that thing and then going on your day. It's amazing. It's
It's the
amazing.
best.
Um, at the same
And
time,
what's also really interesting is Romans are just standing up because they're not sitting down. They're standing up for this social interaction because it's not as though we walk around and eat food. You stand up and you talk to someone, either who's serving you or the person that has a cute dog next to you or the person has like the nice eyeglasses. You want to know where they got them. And you make small talk. It's not like I'm eating this fast on the fly. I don't want to do table service and then I'm out. There is always that interaction with another human that's so essential to it.
the at the same time, Rome is known for these lingering multi-hour, bacchanals that you can also find in the middle of the day. One of my favorite places to go is Osteria delle Coppole, which is in it's kind
Piazza
of
delle
near,
Copelle.
yeah, it's near the Pantheon, and it's near Piazza Navona. And it's got the shittiest reviews on Google. Shittiest. It's like a 3.3 on Google.
Yeah.
But it's filled with a bunch of locals who might go there in a table of 20 and have like a 3-hour lunch. And the waiters, they don't come up and say hello, and you have to kind of like, tug them by the thing to say, can I have another drink? Or can I have my freaking check so you can get a new group of people in here? It's just slow and it's convivial and everybody's just kind of there. And it comes bustling at night, with the young crowd, but it's just a simple Roman, just a good restaurant. Anyways, I know that we've talked about history forever. Folks, you're just going to have to believe me. The second half of the book is even greater, which is the food part of this entire book. Katie has democratically brought, that's the great thing about Italian food in general, cucina povera. None of this is fancy. She's democratized access to a very simple type of food for you in this entire book, the Roman way. Whether it's the 4 main Roman pastas or the kind of the fake Roman pasta that came when Hollywood came to Rome, the Alfredo, or the arancini and the artichokes and the supli and the simple things that you get that are Roman street food types of things. Katie's kind of built out, a couple hundred pages at the back of this book about honoring that. What are some of your favorite recipes in that book that hold weight for you in the back? And then we'll slowly start.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love the involtini, which in a Jersey Italian context would be called brujol. And the Roman involtino is a piece of like pounded beef that has a piece of prosciutto on top, and then you put carrot and celery sticks and roll it up into a roll and like pin it with toothpicks, and you cook it in tomato sauce until it's super, super tender, so like almost 2 hours. And then it's a 1-pot, 2-dish situation because you can use the pasta sauce, or you could use the sauce that's left over for pasta. And then the involtini are your secondo or your protein course. And it's amazing. And I just love it. It makes me feel like not quite like I'm eating my grandmother's brujol because it's the Roman incarnation, not the Lucanian one, but it's sort of it's the analog at the very least. And I love the chicken cacciatore because it's one of the many things that made me think, oh, maybe I need to study food in Italy because the stuff that's called chicken cacciatore in America does not look or taste like this. And it's a classic Central Italian chicken cacciatore. Dark meat, chicken, white wine vinegar, herbs, garlic, oil. That's it. Nothing else. No tomatoes, no peas, nothing.
When you get home from the bar at night, maybe not anymore, but when young people come home from the bar at night,
I get tipsy and I eat pasta when I come home still.
Hey, shout out to my favorite Jerry Thomas Speakeasy.
Heck yeah.
In Campo dei Fiori, who gave me membership number 747. Or something 747, which is the name of my company. So it just turned out to be angel number. But at the end of the night, you eat something very simple, a pasta dish with like 3 ingredients that takes up 5 minutes to prepare. What's spaghetti, aglio, olio, e peperoncino?
It's the best drunk food. I mean, if you've been to the discoteca, you probably had one too many Red Bull and vodkas, because you do not go to the discoteca and drink craft cocktails. You're drinking trash, but you're probably drunk and you probably did not eat anything for hours. And so the aglio olio peperoncino is going to do you right. And it's born in the taverns of Rome before there were trattorie where people would sit down with their families. You went to the tavern. I couldn't go. It was just for men. And you would often just pound beer or wine. And so tavern owners would send out quick pastas like aglio olio peperoncino or cacio e pepe to keep people drinking and to keep them from getting sick. And it's perfect. I mean, cacio e pepe is mac and cheese, another drunk food. I mean, certainly I had my share in college of Kraft mac and cheese. And cacio e pepe is just the Roman version of that.
So to dispel a quick myth, Carbonara is one of the great dishes of Rome, right? The four are cacio e pepe, pasta alla gricia, pasta alla matriciana, and carbonara. When you really think of, like, as an American thinking of like Roman pasta, you think of those four. But contrary to popular Italian American belief, carbonara does not have cream.
Well, honestly, the first published recipes had all sorts of stuff that's not allowed now. Alliums, garlic,
Ew.
Swiss cheese. We're talking the
Ew.
f- we're talking the first published recipes even in like the OG Ada Boni Talisman of Happiness. It's shocking now. It's borderline offensive now. A Roman will slap you if you suggest such a thing, but you simply have to just go look at the original recipes and it's all right there. What is allowed now when making carbonara, you may use two different pastas, rigatoni or spaghetti. You may use guanciale, only pancetta in an emergency, black pepper, of course, egg, and it is permitted to use just yolk or yolk and white. That's allowed. Um, and pecorino romano, but you're allowed to use a little parmigiano reggiano if your pecorino is super salty. So that's become the codified recipe recently. And I'm going to push back against the four pastas because it's reductive, and it's definitely the fault of my food writing colleagues who do not spend enough time researching here. They said there are four Roman pastas. There's like 400, and I'm going to pick a new four, and I will be unsuccessful at spreading the word about these. Rigatoni with pagliata, which is pasta with tomato sauce and the intestines of milk-fed veal. Fettuccine con regaglia, which is fettuccine with chicken gizzards and a tomato sauce. Definitely pasta with sugo di coda, so with the sauce oxtails have simmered in. And finally, minestra broccoli al zilla, in which you actually break spaghetti into a skate and Romanesco soup, and it's so freaking good.
Skate like a stingray?
Yep.
Folks, you heard it here first. And you can find these in Testacchio?
Everywhere.
Okay.
All
Shit.
over the place.
Shit. Okay. We're going to start landing this ship. Folks, I just wanted to give you the breadth, right? We didn't go deep on the food part. We didn't go into how food shows up in the different ages of Rome, from the Iron Age to the Empire, et cetera, et cetera. But I wanted to show you the breadth of Katie as a passionate individual from New Jersey, of Katie as a true historian, because history is our greatest teacher and we'd be fools to ignore it. Katie is a foodie, because, I believe we haven't nourished our souls enough as human beings in an AI-driven world, and food gets us there. Food got me there. It was a simple little evening on May 15th of 2015 at a little restaurant called Pol Giana in the middle of Rome, when my whole life changed. Me and John Fraser and Scott Marchfeld and Mark Terod and Stephanie Anaruma and Ryan Sweeney and Davis Dolan and Cassie, his wife, we're all gathered to the wee hours of the morning just talking. Food gave us that, and Katie gives you the underbelly of Rome's true local food culture. She gives you that and the history of it, and it's freaking fascinating, folks. It's very deep. So we didn't go there today, but we went to some pretty good parts. From a human behavior standpoint, how do you hope a human being will change or be inspired to do what as a benefit of reading your great work?
Leave so much time in Rome unplanned and dare to have an adventure.
Daring takes courage.
You got this.
You got this. What has gone unsaid in our interview today?
Oh, I feel like I gotta I gotta show gratitude for all the home cooks, bakers, pizza makers, chefs who really generously over the past nearly 25 years have opened their kitchens to me and tolerated my endless questions about, like, exactly how much of that are you using when they just intuitively know without weighing anything. And even though clearly I come from a different culture, I'm grateful for having been adopted into this one. And that was left unsaid, but no more.
I think the phrase you use in the book when talking about recipes is just enough.
Yeah, just enough. So precise.
How much to use of something in your own life? Just enough. Well, cheers and thanks to those great chefs who have inspired me. Katie, any last words in closing?
The book is independently published, and I would be tremendously grateful for supporting my work at shop.katieparla.com. It's a pretty good book, I gotta say. I worked
It's
really
a
hard.
phenomenal book, Katie.
You'll like it. Makes a
Folks,
great gift.
folks, I'm holding the soft cover version. It is by the way, that's my favorite color in the world, Roman orange. And if you go to Rome, you will see that many of the buildings are this kind of color of orange, but it's a gorgeous book.
Yeah, it's
Um,
only available in hardcover. You have the
yeah,
special
yes.
fancy
Oops.
digital press edition. Just let's be clear.
Yes, the hardcover is ridiculous. Go to katieparla.shop. Go support her. You're gonna receive this episode likely because I've just heard that you're going to Rome, and I'm sending you this to book Katie for your travel. So I'm so excited for this. Folks, thanks for tuning in. Look, we talked about history and food today, and we didn't necessarily link as much as you thought that we'd link back to your leadership and life philosophy. But folks, if you're building a great company, if you're leading a team of people, if you're just wondering how to be a better parent, the lessons are in this episode. Slow things down, connect with people, honor both the good and the messy, chaotic, unorganized bad. Cook a non-obvious meal for someone to expand their horizons and comfort zone. Visit a place, take an experiential adventure to Rome and get off the beaten path. Visit the cemeteries. Go to the local neighborhoods. Be respectful and kind, but don't go to the non-obvious places. After you listen to this podcast today, take a different route home. See something new. And if you do that, you'll get a flavor of what Katie Parla brings to the world each and every day through everything she does. So thanks for tuning in to all the new listeners. I hope you enjoyed this journey to Rome. Click that subscribe button and share this episode with a traveling wanderer in need of some great inspiration. To all our loyal listeners, it's good to see you again, friend. Our inbox is open for your thoughts, questions, comments, and concerns. Stay along the path, folks. I hope you're having a phenomenal day on Earth. Remember, it's your world. Go explore, and we'll see you for another episode of Gratitude Through Hard Times. Talk to you soon. See you next episode.